Boyz.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I am pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership bassist, composer, and producer Cornelius "Corny" Mims, a founding member of 1980s funk band Tease and an in-demand sessions player. He's worked with dozens of top music stars, including Vanessa Williams, Johnny Gill, Howard Hewitt, Grover Washington Jr., Snoop Dogg, LL Cool J, DJ Quik, Phil Collins, Brian McKnight, Boyz II Men, Lionel Richie, Mary J. Blige, Smokey Robinson, Rashaan, Patterson, George Howard, the Winans, and Patti Austin. Whew, that's some list. How are you, man?
Man, I am well, Scott. I'm well, trying to keep it all going, man. Trying to stay relevant.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing more than that. So welcome to the show. So glad you can make it.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Now, where are you coming to us from today, Corny?
Man, I am coming to you today from sunny, and believe it or not, it's sunny, Providence, Rhode Island is where I am right now. I'm LA born and raised. I'm a LA native, and I actually technically still live there. But man, I've had a circumstance, a very, very untimely death in my family a couple of months ago.
Oh.
And it was my daughter, who lived here in Providence. And I have a 16-year-old granddaughter that I now have to raise. So I'm here in Providence, just kind of getting her through the last bit of her school year. And then I'm going to bring her to California and to live with me in LA.
Wow, that's heavy, Corny. I'm sorry to hear that. Sympathies.
Oh, man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. But I'm doing okay.
Wow. Well, just prayers and best wishes to you and your family at this time.
I appreciate it, man. Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, thankfully, music is one of the best healing things there is. So,
whew, thank God for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It'll get you through. And you know what? Specifically, I would say the funk will get you through it all.
Absolutely. That's my religion right there. Now you're talking.
Funny thing when it comes to the funk, man, it has a way of getting you through the tough time.
Definitely. Yep. When I first went to P-Funk show in the 70s and that Mothership and all that. I mean,
And
if that wasn't a close to God experience, I don't know what is.
I saw them. I saw it. Yeah, I think I saw in '76 at the Coliseum. I did see Parliament Funkadelic at the Cool. I think it was the Cool Jazz Festival or the Funk Festival. At the Coliseum. And I remember in the 10th, so '76.
Yeah. Wow. Yep. Anyways, good reminiscing. So, as you said, from Los Angeles, like me, and I guess we were talking before we went on air. We actually got out of high school the same year, so we're right in there.
Yeah.
How would you say to the viewers that growing up in that environment kind of shaped you in general and also musically?
You know what? It's a combination of the environment that I grew up in and the time, the era. What was going on musically, and for a young musician in the '70s, if you were a youngster and you aspired to play a musical instrument, and we had such great templates to gravitate towards in that era. I'm talking about in the early to mid '70s, even coming out of the '60s, And then music was so important and such a major part of school and my neighborhood, and there were kids aspired to play, and it was encouraged and it was supported. At that time, really, really supported. So for me, it was the combination of, the environment. I grew up in the Gardena South Bay area of LA. And it was just a rich musical culture, for youngsters during the '70s. And a lot of super talents, a talent. So it was a positive, what would you call it?
Environment?
Environment, but I mean, a competition.
Oh.
It was competitive, but it pushed me because I knew I was good, but there were so many other good kids. In order to really excel, you really had to, put the work in.
Yeah,
so
you can only fake it so far.
Man, you could fake it, and if you had it, but even with it, you had to push. If you had it naturally, the gift, so, and there were kids that had it, and it came, like for me, it came so easy. Whatever instrument I attempted to play as a kid, I pretty much learned it and could really, really maneuver it. But even with that, you weren't the only one back in the '70s. There were other kids, and so it just really kind of made you work hard, to really excel at your instrument, because it was important to be dope.
Were you completely self-taught, or did you have some lessons? Did you have a mentor?
You know what? I took piano lessons. That was the formal training, lessons, private lessons that I took was piano. I think I started around age 9. I took piano lessons till age 13. But I picked up the bass actually during that period of time too. That was probably, I think I was about 12. Around 7th grade, I really took an interest, and it was accidental in the bass guitar because I didn't quite even understand what it was when I really took the interest. I had to kind of do some investigation to find out what that instrument actually was. But and then once I started to play bass, I think my dad bought me my first bass at age 13, 8th grade, and it was just a natural fit. And I taught myself, for the most part in the beginning. And then like many kids did, once you kind of start listening to records and dissecting records and dissecting bass lines and kind of dissecting them and putting them back together. I would say I was kind of taught by that a lot in my earlier days. And then I started hooking up with other guys, and, we started shedding and learning from each other, each one teach one. you know.
And as you were saying, Corny, I mean, he came up in that golden era, I mean, of the bands and especially the funk bands and the bass players. I mean, you're talking about, you know, your Louis Johnsons and Larry Grahams and Mark Adams and so many Bootsy, like I'm representing. So who are some of your very favorites and biggest influences?
Man, I am telling you, of course, Larry Graham. Larry Graham, I was totally inundated with Graham Central Station and Larry Graham, you know, in the very early days. I would have to also say, and I got to tell you this, man, I saw this album cover. I had never heard one song by these guys. I just saw the album cover. And I was so impressed just by the way the two brothers on the cover looked. And it was George and Louis Johnson. And it was the very first Brothers Johnson album called Look Out for Number One. And of course, I bought that album, dived in, man, and Louis Johnson immediately, you know, became my guy. My guy. Of course, Mark from Slave, you know, a huge influence, you know, was Mark Adams. There's another brother out of Atlanta named Ray Ransom. Are you familiar with Ray Ransom?
Rick, oh yeah.
Rick, come on now. Woo! Ray Ransom, baby. You know, huge.
We don't want to sit down, we want to get down. I love that.
Oh, what you know about that, man? That I'm talking about that. You know, it was those type of bass players and those, you know, and there was a lot more. I know I'm not covering them all. And then, but no, on a whole different side, on the bass player influence was Jaco Pastorius and Weather Report. You know, because of course, not only were we in the '70s really groomed on the funk, we were also groomed in jazz and jazz fusion and, you know, and even rock. And, you know, it was such a, like, especially in the area that I grew up in the South Bay, Gardena, such a melting pot of ethnicity until I was influenced by all types. You know, so Jaco Pastorius on a whole different direction was incredible, and still to this day. And all those dudes, even to this day, they still play a very integral part into, you know, as to my bass and my funk approach. You know, I haven't really variated much from what I came up on. I'm still that guy. You know.
Yeah, well, thank goodness, man, keeping it alive. You know, I mean, that's
at 60 years old, I'm still giving it to them.
Yeah. Do your hands get more sore these days, or are you pretty good?
Man, you know, a little, and sometimes, but man, I just dig through it, man. You just dig through, and you know, and I'm really grateful to say it's a minimal, if at all, even at this, you know, with this many years in. You know, I still pick that bass up, get up on stage, and do what I've been doing. You know?
What would you say are a couple of elements of your signature style in how you approach your playing?
Man, I tell you, I refer to it as, you know, there's a thing that some bass players do. Firstly, it's the role and the position of the bass in the ensemble. It's a foundation. It's a foundation, man, and that's all it ever should be, is a foundation. It's the glue, you know, to the ensemble. It's the thing that makes your booty move, and it's subliminal. You don't even understand why your ass is moving. You don't even know, but it's the bass. So, you know, I mean, coming up like during that era of time where you got iconic bass lines, and those bass lines were very linear, right? They weren't all over the place, and they weren't jumping all over, and you know, it wasn't a whole bunch of notes played. It's just conviction. You know, it was the conviction in which those lines were hit. You know, and it just made it was the magic in the foundation and in the funk. So I mean, I really grabbed a hold of that. So, you know, I've never even been a bass player that I don't like taking bass solos. I don't even like taking bass solos. I think bass solos are whack. I don't like them. For me, I like to solo by way of my groove. Like, I like my foundation and the fact that I'm keeping that thing so locked down and so heavy and so rooted. That's where I choose to shine. You know, so I think that has been the thing that has really kept me relevant and kept me working through all these years. Because the one thing about Corny Mims, that dude, man, he just refuses. He refuses to sacrifice the groove for the sake of and then there's a discipline. There's such a discipline to locking that funk in, man, and sitting on it and not moving. I mean, I'm talking about for 96 bars straight. You just sitting on a groove, man. You ain't making no extras. It's just the funk and the groove. And then what I love about it is, say you've been sitting on it for 96 bars straight, right? You've been hammering. And then you make just one slight little nuanceful move at 96 crossing over the bars 97. It's like, wow, did you hear that? But he gets right back at 97, and then he gives you another 96 bars, straight funk. You know what I'm saying? So it's that foundational mindset, you know, that I know, you know, was instilled early for me. And it's dope to me. It's dope. And I like it not only from the bass player's vantage point. I like drummers that sit down on it, man, and will just keep that thing, man, especially when I'm playing with them. I like, man, and all of a sudden, you know, it's just being the drummer as far as I'm concerned. You know, and we just sitting on that thing, man, so dope, so funny, so funky, and so consistent, man. And then I look in the audience and I see people and their asses are moving and they're grooving and, man, you know, and I totally know why. I totally get it. I sit up there and watch the response as I'm watching, you know, as I'm playing, especially when I got the right drummer, the drum bass combo, and it's magic, you know, it's magic. So that's kind of been my whole mindset through my career is, man, that foundation funk, you know.
Well, yeah, you know, we talked about some of the a little more flashier bass players from the era, but still, just, you know, there's a reason why groups like, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire and the Ohio Players, and so many of them, you know, the basses weren't always that flashy, but they had the best grooves of the era. And I had,
man, Skin Tight.
Oh, man,
that bass line is just a 2-bar loop, and that's it. Jones he wasn't all over the place. He wasn't, you know, doing a bunch of acrobatics. It was a do 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 do, and that's it.
Yeah. Hey, you know what?
No minutes.
That was the first album I ever bought, so that tells you my history.
Absolutely, baby. Yeah. So we had to. I think you and I were in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was probably the first bass line I learned how to play with Skin Tight.
I just had Ronald Lepred on the show from Commodores.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Actually, yeah, he told me that Brickhouse was inspired by Skin Tight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. I can totally hear the relationship. Brickhouse to Skin Tight, same key, both of them in A minor, you know, and I totally get that.
And I had on James Alexander recently, and he was talking about, you know, how the secret also to those Barcades jams was just being in the pocket and not being so flashy, but holding it down like nobody else, you know?
James Alexander, that's another one, man. You know, they did a song. This is one of my real anthems. My personal anthems is a Barcades tune called Holy Ghost. And I mean, James Alexander is, it's just a 1-bar loop and he never leaves it. And it's magic, you know? It's those simple, iconic lines for me, man. You know, and, you know, James Alexander is responsible for quite a few of them.
Yeah. And he didn't even know how to play when he joined that group. So that was.
Wow.
Yeah. So what were your, you know, early experiences that sort of led you to Tease?
Well, man, you know, it was formulating and brewing for a few years, even before it actually became teens, or what would ultimately become teens, just through school, man. By junior high school, we called it junior high school. We didn't call it middle school. Remember? But by junior high school, man, I would say 8th grade. I pretty much knew that music was something that I really loved and could excel at, and I wanted to excel at. So as I began to meet other kids, in my neighborhood and at my school, and we started putting bands together and going through different configurations of bands and and in school we also had in the school programs, I started to hook up with different guys, and some of the guys, we became, and what's beautiful in my case, some of those very guys from junior high school and high school are my boys today. I mean, we still play together. We still, I'm getting ready to do a gig at the end of this month, and 2 of the guys rolling with me, we're going to the Dominican Republic, and 2 of the guys are guys that I went to middle school with. We've been literally playing together for over 50 years now, and we're still doing it. But that's what it was, So it was just kind of like, getting and connecting up with some of those dudes, the Kipper Joneses, the Paul Jackson Juniors, the Kevin O'Neills, and there's other guys in that whole conglomerate of young kids that I began to really forge relationships musically and personal. They're like, we brotherhoods. And and one in particular was Kipper Jones. That was a super important, which happened in 1976. Kipper and I came to Gardena High School in the 10th grade, or summer prior to 10th grade. And although we did not live in the same neighborhoods, and he was bused in, when he got to Gardena and I got to Gardena, he and I connected, and it has been a relationship that, carries on to this very minute. Me and Kipper have never really separated from the summer of 1976 to right now. I mean, the dude was super talented. He had a lot of girls after him, and I admired that about him. He was just a real super entertainer and a musician, and he was 15 and I was 15. So it got to a point where Kipper and I, through high school, it was like every band that I was in or that I had anything to do with, if he wasn't already a member, we had to figure out how he could be a member if he wanted me to be a member. It's like, okay, so what's Kipper going to do? It's just like an automatic thing, it was just implied. Kipper's going to be in this band if you didn't know. And same thing with me, with him, if he was asked or was a part of something, he'd just go to the powers that be. Okay, I got this guy, Corny Mims. We're going to have to figure out a way to get him in here, if you want me to be in it. So Kipper and I kind of maneuvered through life and through music, got through high school, graduated high school, tried our hand in college, and then the professional industry bug started calling us, by 1980. By 1980, we started getting some real professional calls. So it was like, hey, man, to hell with college. Let's go to work. So, and, we had formed a band that would ultimately become teens by that time, too.
Yeah, I know that the group won a talent show, and I think is it true that the name of the band kind of came like from somebody backstage making the suggestion, or?
No, not really. That's not really how Teens came about. Okay, firstly, the band had totally disbanded. We had broke up, and before Teens, we were called Seventh Heaven. Is who we were, and Seventh Heaven had disbanded, and somehow it was very, just out of nowhere. The KA's Concerts in the Park came up in 1981, and somebody got wind of it. I think it was one of our guitarists, and he said, "Hey, this contest is coming up. Let's put something together. Let's put something. You know, we don't know what we're going to call it, but we're not going to call it. We don't even know what it is. But I'm going to enter us into this contest." And so, to my recollection, I believe it was Joe Parsons who was like the guitarist. He just pulled a name out of the air. Last minute, and you know, that's what he entered us into the contest as, and that's who we were. And I didn't personally like it at first. I didn't really care for it. But we went along with it, and Tease just was Tease, and then we had a little run as Tease. You know, some of the very, very beginnings of, where all of our careers would end up started, as a result of the band.
I know you guys connected with Ollie Brown, who's been on the show also. Amazing career he's had.
Yeah, man.
What was your first impressions of him? And how excited were you to get the record deal out of that?
Firstly, Ollie, at that time, was quite the character. Because he was balling. He was doing very, very well. I'm talking about, and he had done well. The 70s was real good to him. So, he had really, really, by the time I met him, and we met him, I mean, he was doing huge things. And had done huge things, and I followed him. So I knew exactly who he was. So I was actually somewhat, starstruck. I was a little starstruck because, he was a very prominent dude in the game, And so, and I really, even to this day, I love the way he just kind of bogarted and just took us. It's like we didn't even have a choice in the matter. When we came to work with him, he just literally came to us after we won the KH concert and told us, "Check this out. I'm ready to sign y'all. I want y'all to be at Ray Parker Studio, be at my studio. That was a Sunday. Be at my studio tomorrow at noon. We're gonna talk about it. You guys are my band. I'm gonna hook y'all up and be there. And don't worry about nothing. I got y'all. It's on." So we just like, okay, let's go. We were 20 years old, 19, and this was Ollie Brown. So sure enough, man, we got with him the next day, and he did everything he promised he was going to do, and took us through. He was pulling some real major strings with some major players in the game, and got us in front of some people that nobody else were privy to. Before we actually did our RCA deal, we showcased them. Ollie put some really amazing situations together to get us exposure to a lot of prominent people. So we, were able to go through that whole process before we actually did it. Ollie was a baller, real aggressive.
How did you feel being in the studio? I assume that was that your first time in a pro studio laying that record down, or had you done some sessions before?
No, we had we started the recording process and the recording session process. It was more demo recordings. It wasn't anything on the pro level until, for me, it would be 1981 when I really started doing, recording sessions, at the pro level, with major artists. And but yeah, that by that time, we had done our share. That was 1983 when we did the first Tease record. So, we had started doing recordings, myself, Kipper, and the other guys. We were kind of revered as one of the hot rhythm sections around town by that time. A lot of people would hire myself, Derek Organ, Thomas Organ, Rex Salas, you know, as a rhythm section to do, you know, we did a lot of recordings.
Well, I know. I wasn't sure of the chronology of that, but that is key to know.
Yeah.
But let's finish talking about Tease a little bit, then I'll circle back to some of those other people's and their sessions. I think that'll work well.
Yeah.
But so with Tease, you know, I heard the Flash, you know, on the radio, probably 1580 K day, for the first time, and you know, it just was kicking ass, you know, and it was as good as any funk that was coming out at that point, especially. And you know, I thought it should be a big hit. It did get some good play initially.
Yeah.
Then it kind of tapered off some, and I guess, you know, chart wise didn't, you know, do gangbusters. How'd you feel about that record, and how'd you feel about the overall album?
You know what, man? In real honesty, it was our first album, right? It was our record. It was our first album, and I'm grateful for the experience and everything that we were able to, you know, everything that it was, you know, the entire experience. But I honestly was not happy with the album. You know, I didn't like the overall outcome of the record myself personally. What I did like, because what Ali did was he rehearsed us, and we went in the studio and we kind of, after we wrote the songs, we as a band, we kind of put that entire album together, you know, as a band, and then, you know, and once we came up with songs, Ali brought us in, and we just did like demo recordings, like just straight 2-track. You know, we didn't even do you know, it wasn't multi-track. This is just for us to like hear, and to me, it was the translation from the 2-track demo to the full record. It was by that time I think we had lived with the stuff too long, and we didn't have the same. I don't think we hit the records with the same energy that we hit the demos with. And the demos, in my opinion, were sonically doper than what the album, because, you know, it's like, you know, we stopped and we thought, and I may have overthought, and all of us may have overthought a lot of things by the time it got to the actual album. And so it was just, and there was a lot of extra things done that, you know, because we're in multi-track mode, we can go in and overdub and punch, and see, the 2-tracks were straight down. They were performances. You know, there was no punching in, there was no cleaning up, and it was raw. And even sonically, it was a band. Like, you know, we were all playing at the same time, and Kipper was singing, and it was just a performance. So, you know, so it felt a lot more natural, the demos, than the actual album for me. You know, I mean, I'm sure Ali has them, but I'd like to hear the 2-tracks demos that we did. I'd love to hear that today. I'd be interested to hear 40 years after. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's not an uncommon thing that happens, you know, in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the overthinking aspect of it, you know,
and losing some of the spontaneity and rawness and original spark, you know.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I think we had maybe gotten a little burnt out by the time we actually, you know, got to the studio, you know. So that's my thought about that first feedback. You know, I mean, but thank God, you know, it got out and we did it.
What was the thinking in the band, you know, in terms of what you aspired to as Tease, you know, and did you think, you know, emulate somebody like The Time or anyone else, or?
Yeah, you know, by that time, let me see. We're talking about myself, Kipper, Derek and Thomas Organ, Rex Salas, Joe Parson, and you got to throw Chucky Booker in there too. You know, although in that first album he wasn't an actual member, he was a member by proxy as our keyboard player too. So, you know, we had been coming up through, like I say, and being influenced by so many things by that time. You know, there was the cameo influence, you know, the Commodore's influence, the And then, when you moved into 1980, or even late 70s into 1980, there was the Prince thing. Prince had came around, by 1979. So, you got Prince, and then of course you got the spin-offs of The Time. And so it was just all of those influences. And then we were also, even before we did our first Steve's record, we had done a lot of top 40 gigs around the city. We had a really, really rich run of, just playing the circuit, the LA circuit, the LA scene, the clubs, private gigs, and, just a lot of, as a band. So of course, in that you have to learn a lot of, covers, the cover band thing. So, and in that, we played a lot, there was so many influences. So, including some rock stuff. There was definitely some rock things that we were great, Kansas and, like Carry On My Wayward Son and, Yes and Rush, some Queen, so we were influenced even by that. So it wasn't so much just a funk influence. And then, even the new wave thing was starting to kick in. You remember the whole early 80s new wave, like the British thing, the ska music, all that stuff, so we were soaking up all that stuff. So I would say we were trying to incorporate a little of all of that into that project, because we were seriously into all of it. And we played it, and we were prolific musicians. Everybody was super stellar musicians in their own right. So yeah, the album, I remember there was one, What Should I Do? Was a kind of rockish thing, kind of, more Huey Lewis and the News, and some of the British stuff that you were hearing around that time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons, and you talk about those, different influences, and I think it's so important. I've said this many times. The best, most innovative music to me is that brings in a lot of diverse kind of musical elements, not just, one genre, but bringing them together and taking different aspects of them all. And even on a song like Flash, where it's got the screaming guitar solo,
sure.
It's bringing in some rock, and, that's what I really loved. Right around that time was, the fusing together of rock and funk and different things. So,
because that was Thomas Organ. Thomas Organ was such a rocked out dude. He was a rocked out dude, and he was a funkster like none other. And Tommy was a couple of years younger than the rest of us. So he was Derek's little brother. But he had been so influenced. But again, it was not just the funk. Coming up in the 70s that we gravitated towards. It was funk, it was fusion. A lot of those guitar players and those those fusion bands. I'm talking about the Return to Forevers, the Weather Reports, Lee Ritenour,
Stanley Clark.
Stanley Clark, all of that, man. We were hugely influenced by all of that.
Yeah, that's what I love, Corny, is, bring it all in. Just don't forget the funk.
Don't forget the funk.
Yeah.
For me, it will all lead you to ultimately the funk. That should be the landing place. Once you get through all of it, because even rock for me, I love playing rock. Man. I've never had more fun. I did Kenny Loggins in 1987. I did Kenny Loggins' Back to Avalon tour, and of course we were promoting, remember Highway to the Danger Zone? And
from Top Gun.
Highway to the Danger Zone and Meet Me Halfway, and of course the Caddyshack stuff. So it was a straight rock gig, But Kenny's quite the funky dude. He's a real soulful guy. To me, I always told him, man, bro, you sound like a very black lady. Kenny Loggins was a very, very dope dude to work for. But it had that rock thing. But man, I was all, I can't help it. I don't give a damn. You're gonna get the funk even in that rock, and it made that rock even funky. It made it more rock because it had booty.
Yeah.
It had booty, man. I'm telling you, we were hitting that Kenny Loggins thing. I'm talking about what's that song, man? Footloose. Footloose, man. You ever heard Footloose? I mean, really, man, with the funk on it? Woo! That's what I'm talking about, man. It had an extra thing on it.
Foot and booty loose.
Oh man, yes. All of it, bro. When you mesh it all in there and put that funky undertone under it, man, Footloose was nasty. And I love playing that tune. Because it's that rockabilly thing, right? But man, you can still bring a funk element to it. And I'm telling you, all of them joints, man. So that was what I loved. And I attribute that to growing up in that time and that era. Because when I got the Kenny Loggins call, firstly, Kenny was not foreign to me. I was very familiar with him. And then to jump in there and just play all that, just come from that direction, it was cool. And they appreciated it. Even the rock dudes, the guitar, they were like, wow, man, you got a different thing.
Was he doing Loggins and Messina material also?
Yeah. We did a L&M medley. Yeah, we did Loggins and Messina. We had to, he's got to do that.
Your Mama Don't Dance.
Oh, Mama
rock and roll.
And House at Pooh Corner. Please Celebrate Me Home. Yeah, we did all, the whole Loggins and Messina thing. It was a great gig, man. Great gig, man. Great.
So, if you get nothing else from this particular show, bring funk to whatever you do.
Bring it with you everywhere, bro. I'm telling you, it'll bail you out. If you find yourself in trouble, pull your funk card out, bro, and it's going to help you out of that jam, whatever jam you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So Corny Tease, after that first record, there was sort of a hiatus. A few years went by until there was another record, and then it was also named Tease.
Yeah.
Which seems like something, you could get teased about, having the same title over again, which was confusing to the marketplace. It was confusing to me. I was like, was it the first record re-released or repackaged? No, it's
that's a different record with the same title.
Yeah.
Different record, same title. Yes. And then by that time, man, that was 1986. And, like family and like brotherhood and, like it happens, I had a falling out with Kipper and the guys, because, keep in mind, we graduated high school in 1979, right? So now we moved into the 80s, it's 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84. Like, so we're getting to be like 23, 24, 25 years old now. And we're grown, we're adults. And now the first Tease album, we thought it would be, the road to riches for us, and it didn't work out that way. So we had real life situations starting to hit us, as adults, young adults. So, we couldn't really depend, or we were hoping that the Tease thing would yield us, because, we've been working on it since high school. But reality was, hey, man, we now have rents and we have bills and we have, life that we have to facilitate financially. So it became the thing of, okay, and we're so good, we're starting to get calls to do other things outside of Tease, us individually. And I had gotten some real awesome, amazing calls, early. Like one call that I got, was from Patrice Rushen to tour with her, in 1982. And the thing was, everybody was, the rest of the guys kind of started freaking out, right? At the fact that I'm going to go out and leave the band, you're going to leave us behind, and you're going to go out, and you're going to do this. And, where's your loyalty? Where's your loyalty? So the pressure was so I was so young, and we were so young, and the pressure was so intense from the guys until I ended up quitting Patrice Rushen. And I didn't do that tour, you know. So then another opportunity came to me, and this is a crazy one. I hate that that's the same scenario, but the call was Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing Tour. And I was on it. I was rehearsing. I was, on my way on to do what would turn out to be Marvin Gaye's final tour before he died. But oh my God, here comes the guys from Tees. Man, you're gonna leave us behind. You're gonna do this, man. That's fucked up. Man, what's up with your loyalty? Again, and I mean, so much pressure. And like, keep in mind, these are my brothers. I'm feeling. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to do anything because we're brothers. So what does Corny do? I quit the Marvin Gaye Sexual Healing Tour. Not doing it. So finally, in 1986, what happened was, and then of course, I could have done those tours and gotten back because Tees didn't do anything in that same amount of time. We were just around town, not making no money, and I mean, here's these two major situations that I passed on. So I finally got an opportunity in 1986 that I was like, I don't give a damn. I gotta go. I'm going to do, and it was just 1 week.
Corny, how did those tours know about you? Like Patrice Rushen's camp and Marvin Gaye's camp. How did they know about you?
Patrice Rushen, let me see. Come on in, babe. Hey, Scott, I want you to meet somebody real quick. Scott, I want you to meet the love of my life, man. This is my granddaughter. This is Miss Vanessa Smith.
Hey.
Look at my granddaughter, man. This is my 16-year-old.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. How you doing, honey? Everything good? All right. So I'm doing my interview with Scott now. Yeah. It's all good, babe. Come on in. Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Yeah. So, yeah, man. Patrice, let's start there. Paul Jackson Jr. actually started working with Patrice when we were in high school still. Paul got called from Patrice when we were at Gardena High School. And what happened was Paul and I used to go see Patrice Rushen with Lee Ritenour back when we were still at Gardena, right? We'd sneak into the baked potato, underage, and Lee Ritenour would sneak us in and make us stay in the back. And of course, Patrice was playing keys. And what made me stand out with Patrice once I met her, even though I was a kid, was my name, Cornelius Mims, because her producer and her boyfriend at the time was my cousin, Charles Mims. Right? Charles Mims, who co-wrote and co-produced everything she did back in all of her hits and everything. That's my cousin Charles. So when I finally met her, and we came to find out that I'm related to Charles Mims, that always kept me in her mind. So by 1982, I had done this one gig with Patrice, and I think I did very well on it, like a one-off. So when she was going out on tour, and this was to promote Forget Me Nots, and she was blazing by this time, and it was going to be a great run. And of course, we were big Patrice fans. So she remembered me, and of course, I think my cousin had also told her, "Hey, what about Cornelius? You want, So I got that call. So now, how did Marvin Gaye happen? Marvin Gaye happened. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, was Charles miffed that you turned away Patrice?
You know what? It didn't go over well. It didn't go over well. Because see, and in all of these cases, it turned out to be very, very detrimental. And now here's the big one. Now the Marvin Gaye was really, really tough because it was Marvin Gaye. It was a Sexual Healing tour, and Sexual Healing was a huge record at the time. So a very, very dear friend of mine, man, rest in peace, Wawa Watson, who had really taken me under his wing as a young player. You know, in the early 80s, I started doing some sessions with him, and he really just took me in as a young player that, you know, and he really stayed with me the rest of his life, you know, putting me in on some great gigs. But he was on the Sexual Healing tour, and you know, he was legendary, iconic by this time. You know, he's another one that I was very starstruck when I finally met Wawa Watson. I was like, wow. But sure enough, he was the one who pulled the strings and got me in on the Sexual Healing tour. You know, got me, you know, where they called me to come in, and I jumped in there, and you know, we were rehearsing at CBS Records in Century City. You know, we were doing the full orchestra. I mean, I was there. I was on it. I was getting ready to go on. I mean, and I'm 23, 24 years old. So, man, I'm a youngster, and sitting literally 10 feet across from me right there is Marvin Gaye himself. It was just surreal, man. I couldn't believe it. You know, like I'm actually playing a Marvin Gaye song with Marvin Gaye. Like I played many Marvin Gaye songs, but he wasn't sitting 10 feet away from me. So that was the difference, you know. But man, I'm starting to hear all sorts of shit from the guys. The guys are really letting me have it about this, man. Like this is the worst thing you could ever do.
Hey, Corny, I heard Wawa. I was really hoping to have him on the show before he passed, but it didn't work out. Such a fan of his. I heard he was a character, though. Is that true?
Oh man, how crazy Wawa was, man. This dude was, and you know what? The more intense, like the way he came off, like a huge bully. Like he would really, really intimidate the shit out of you, you know. I mean, but that was absolutely his way of letting you know he loved you and he respected you. So you had to be thick-skinned around him, and you had to kind of also get the joke, you know. And see, that's one thing about me. I'm an idiot just like him, you know. So we were kindred in our idiotness, you know. He was an idiot, and I tapped into him real early. I was like, wait a minute, this dude is out of his mind, you know. So we had a real, and I totally got him. And then I learned with Wawa, the best way to really deal with him is disrespect him as well. And he will love you to the end of time. If you can show him the same disrespect he shows you, you guys got a relationship, you know? So that's kind of what I, you know, once I realized, okay, this guy, you know, he's not being mean, he's being funny, and he really digs me, you know? So all the insults, just shoot them right back at him. You know, so we had this kind of relationship, man. Wawa was the man. The man. Great dude. You know? But yeah, so anyway, sure enough, man, the Marvin Gaye thing, man, and so that was a huge letdown for Wawa because he did have to, and he did pull some serious strings to pull me in because I was nobody. Nobody knew who I was at that time. You know, and there were other players around town with bigger names that could have come in. But, you know, so for me to be a green, new, and literally quit, like, what are you thinking about? This is Marvin Gaye. You out of your mind? And I regret it. You know? Yeah, I regret it.
But still, around that time, I mean, looking at your list of credits, hopefully it's accurate, Corny. But in '82, you worked with Tavares, and 83, Johnny Gill.
Yeah.
Around that time too, Patti Austin.
Yeah.
So you were still, you know, scoring some pretty substantial sessions.
There was some things happening, man. You know, it was some things, and things have always happened. Thank God. You know, there's always been something to do. You know, so if you know. I can't really look in retrospect today and say I just totally regret, you know, because there were other things that happened in the midst of those things that I turned down. you know. But then again, sometimes I think, now, what if I would have done the Marvin Gaye Sexual Healing Tour? How that could have changed my entire, what that could have done. And of course, we'll never know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that it sounds like, you didn't turn it away for the best of reasons ultimately,
I mean, we were young, we were kids. We were kids, man, and sure enough, as things would go, after that, that second, and then T's even did a third album without me, and that M2 produced. And then sure enough, now it's the late 80s, and my career kind of went in very positive ways post T's, great thing, that's when the Kenny Loggins thing came about in 87. I ended up doing my songwriter deal with Michael Jackson in 87 as well. I had my first daughter was born, so, it was a good time, as we got to the tail end of the 80s and crossing over into the 90s and everything,
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkandstuff.net. Thank you very much.